I feel like buying snacks at the porn theater is a crazy move. Wanting to eat in that space. All right, man.
Well, you don't know how long you're going to be there for. I guess back in the day, it'd be
I
like
know
any other
people
theater. Yeah.
just went to go hang out places and they camped there for like hours and hours. So yeah, I guess you'd get hungry. Have a session, go out, get some snacks, go back in.
God, I'm really glad that time has come and gone. That seems.
Oh, I feel total opposite. I feel like we miss it.
Oh, that it's such a seedy. The people who would go there, the level of awkwardness that probably existed there.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like it's too, what's the word? Like stigmatized,
If something like that came back today, if they're like, a new porn theater showing up, it would be like super clean. We keep this place tidy.
This is the problem. Yeah.
Spray it down.
No, I've gone to some screenings of like new adult stuff and vintage stuff, and now everything, it's like in a gallery space. It's like, we're all watching this academically, and it's like, I don't know, just let people go watch some porn to get their rocks off. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Well, no. Yeah, but I'm saying even if that was the case, that they would still have a nightly crew coming in there and hosing the place down, keeping it clean with baby wipes or whatever you want, So because I can only imagine. I mean, the way it's depicted, even it seems like he's shooting in the places that really did it. And, you get these like, if theaters are already dirty, sometimes you can only imagine. Yeah,
the film Variety by Betty Gordon is a terrific inverse to this, where it's from the perspective of a woman who's working the like ticket stand of a porn theater. It's really, really good. And it's just like, what a crazy world. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's probably a meme of some kind already in existence for this conundrum that you find yourself in.
Yeah, there's pros and cons either side, but we like to talk through the movies, give you a deeper sense of our thoughts. It's not just a star rating, an anonymous little star rating. And we're talking about one of those tentpole movies of American cinema. It's Taxi Driver. It's Martin Scorsese. It's Paul Schrader. It's Robert De Niro. And you might want to go to the film experts for your opinions on American classics, but some like it unauthorized. And I am Jay Brooks Young.
And I'm Zach Gomes. And I guess my first question would be, we had both seen this movie already, right?
Yes, I saw this as a teenager.
Yeah, which is an interesting time to have seen it. Do you remember what kind of effect it had on you at that time?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I had already absorbed some of the references from other things. It's been parodied. It's like one of those films that pops up in like cartoons and stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like it had a big impression on me as a teenager, as much as some other films did, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or even something like Into the Wild, which kind of came out more recent to when I was a teen. Like, it's a film that feels important. It's hard to watch it now and kind of separate it from the reputation and just try to take it in on its own, Mm-hmm. I don't, it almost is hard to get into the film, feel connected to it, because I feel like it's just iconography now.
Right.
I don't know. Did you watch it as a teenager?
No, I don't think I ever did. I just knew about it. I didn't get around to it till late college, post-college maybe. Yeah. I think when I first saw it, I thought it was a well-crafted movie and very different from anything I had seen. But, as the years go by and the news about people who are like De Niro's character keep coming out and, just becomes more irrelevant as time goes by, I feel like, in retrospect, upon reflection.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is watching more films from this era and seeing how prevalent, like, this fascination with the assassin, what is that the word?
Wannabe assassin.
Yeah, the shooter.
Yeah.
Like, that stuff's all over 70s and even 60s films. I think there are other factors to why this film became kind of one of the prime examples of that kind of film.
Well, yeah, it separates the shooter from like a group in a way. He's a lone shooter. Which from memory, do you have are there any other movies that you can think of that do something where they kind of extract the shooter out of any context, within a dynamic there, and instead it's just him kind of writing a little manifesto of sorts?
Well, Dirty Harry created this Zodiac analog serial killer who is terrorizing people. There are films like, I think, Bogdanovich's Targets deals with that. And I'm trying to think of other examples, but
yeah, Altman does include in the huge cast of characters in Nashville a shooter in that too. So yeah, it's on people's minds too because of JFK being the event.
And all the other,
and other ones too, yeah.
Yeah.
When a supposed lone shooter goes after the top guy, though, it doesn't really get much more extreme than that. And then you have all the other ones too. So yeah.
No, I mean, Scorsese said they wanted to shoot in the park where that like last rally is held, specifically because there had been a shooting there in the recent past. And he wanted to, borrow on that real world kind of history. And then this film, is said to have inspired the guy who shot Reagan in an attempted assassination as well, a couple of years later.
Interesting. That guy must not have watched the whole movie or something.
Well, it's I think part of the like response at the time, which was polarized, was that, yeah, you were really delving into the psychology of this character and you could kind of put yourself in his shoes. Like when we get to the introduction of Betsy at the campaign office and her coworker who likes her, played by Albert Brooks, like there's something where, right, it feels like Travis, De Niro's character, is dealing with the real world, and here they are in their little bubble, like they feel so kind of detached from the stuff that he's like seeing out on the streets that we are also witnessing through the film. So like I did have that impulse of like, these people are annoying, these people are just a couple of loser yuppies. Like I was kind of like feeling the way that the Travis character felt for a second there, and I was like, oh, that's where this film becomes uncomfortable and like is really most effective when you are able to kind of like feel the way Travis feels and sort of understand why he feels that way,
Yeah, I mean, you're going to cause controversy and also do something interesting if you make this character relatable in some way. And I say this all of the time about these characters that are difficult. It's like, wouldn't it be strange if we watched these kind of characters, whoever it might be, that have problems and think to ourselves like, oh, glad I'm not them. It's like we all have parts of, these weird characters in us. And it's not that most of us would go out and get a gun and try to do a shooting, but the impulse to be annoyed and to be hateful and to be upset is real. And, we would hope that in a society that's like eye for eye, that we wouldn't we wouldn't actually act on that impulse. But who knows? Who knows how many of us would actually stay true to our own principles in that sense?
Yeah. Like it's your sort of mental state, how you see the world is extremely malleable depending on your like outside circumstances. And there's the older taxi driver that he talks to who says something like, you become what you do. And he is he's this guy who's just stuck in his own head.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way he interfaces with the world is through this transactional thing and purposely putting himself in these places where he's seeing like people's worst impulses, people like at their worst,
Mm-hmm.
And he's not seeing, the humans behind that, why they're like that. He's just seeing, that bad stuff. So he starts to see that. He starts to read that into everyone, It becomes this misanthrope. And I mean, yeah, that's real. Like that will happen to you if you kind of like isolate yourself from other people. And society doesn't help. Like the ways that he tries to kind of reach out to people fail, and there aren't people really trying to reach out to him. And so there's no like off ramp from this worsening isolated mental state.
Yeah. I know. I think that scene where he's trying to reach out to that guy and tell him what's going on with him is so well done, because it shows that he has a longing to like let that guy know what's going on for him. But as soon as he kind of like walk outside and then that moment comes when he can actually say what's going on, he can't do it. He just can't really say much. And that because the older guy is like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. I can't give you a good advice. He tries to give him advice and he's like, that's not very good advice. And the guy's like, yeah, well, because I don't even know what you're saying. So.
Yeah. He's just like, I don't know, you'll be okay.
Yeah. So sounds like you'll be fine. Just stop thinking so much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so part of, I think, the mythology of this film itself comes from Paul Schrader being the writer of it, who then goes on to become a director in his own right, and write on some of the other best-known Scorsese films, Raging Bull and Last Temptation of Christ. But this was like a very early one for him, basically. He'd not been out of UCLA long, where he had been studying film. And he had just, as he tells it, he had just broken up with his wife, and he was feeling very isolated, driving around, going to porn theaters. And, he wrote this as kind of therapy, as like working through these feelings that he was starting to recognize in himself. And he wrote it very quickly. And he knew Brian De Palma somehow, but he was going to give this script to De Palma, and I forget the exact circumstances, but instead it ends up going to Scorsese, and he writes Obsession for De Palma instead. But it definitely, like the idea, I think, of this one guy kind of writing about, what it means to be a man in America and isolated and stuff, and he doesn't have like the industry behind him. He's kind of someone outside of Hollywood writing this, and it's a really terrific, simple screenplay. It's like, that's just kind of inspirational to a lot of different people who imagine themselves becoming, screenwriters or directors. So I think that's part of the myth of the movie, why people care about it, or continue to care about it.
Yeah.
And I've only watched, what's it called from Schrader? The Ethan Hawke one.
Oh, which one is that?
The recent one.
Oh, Last Reformed.
First Reformed. Last Temptation of Christ. First Reformed.
Yeah.
But, I feel like he continues to be a point of interest for people. I mean, like, the transcendental film, this like thesis that he wrote at UCLA continues to be a really interesting piece of writing that's worth kind of looking at and considering, where he talks about the similarities in Tarkovsky and Bresson and these people. And it's yeah, he's a fucking smart dude. So like, it makes sense that people continue to want to come back to this film and think about the themes and stuff. What was he getting at with it?
Well, what do you think he was getting at?
Well, I can tell you what he said.
Yeah.
Because the other part of why this film is so big in the public consciousness is that it had the first director commentary on the home media release, and they put little bits of Schrader talking about the film in that commentary as well. Most of it's Scorsese, but this was that first Criterion putting the first director commentary out, and they had done commentaries with like scholars, historians up to that point, kind of from the beginning when they started putting out laser discs in the mid 80s. But I think it was in 1990, around the time that Goodfellas was coming out, that they decided we could get Scorsese and Schrader to talk about the film for the commentary. And that feels like it kind of just guaranteed, this film being in the canon, because all kinds of cinephiles listen to that and share the stories from it and stuff. And, Scorsese is this guy who is really, really good about talking about why he chose certain camera moves and what was the process of, writing the music with Herrmann and stuff like that. But what Schrader says on that, I mean, he lays it out very, very simply, is like, yeah, this guy is the sort of contradiction of he's like torturing himself, putting himself in these situations where he's going to fail. He's a self-sabotaging guy, and the sort of central idea of the movie is him fixating on these two women, the Madonna and the whore, the one that he, how Schrader puts it, he desires but he can't have, and the other one that he can have but he can't desire. And then he, in his frustration, decides to try to kill the father figures of both of these women. And he fails at killing, the Betsy character's father figure, the candidate, but then succeeds at killing Sport, the father figure of the Jodie Foster character. And then the irony is that he's a hero for doing that. But it's like, it's really simple and really effective. It's kind of just like borrowing on those kind of Freudian ideas, but it feels obvious when he lays it out like that. Like, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That is great. Before knowing that, I do feel like there's a sense that those themes existed, but now hearing it becomes clear. But you do get this feeling that like those are the two sides of his fascinations, and kind of wanting. It's sort of funny that he protects the one who's involved in prostitution already, but the other one he takes to a porno theater, right? She's the one he's more fascinated by in terms of wanting to be in a relationship, but there he is, confused about what she would be into, and thinks, this will be fun. He sees somebody. He see that one couple making out on a taxi outside of that area, and he kind of gets in his mind like, this is what couples do. I do feel like, as I was watching it again, that part definitely felt a little strange. Like, it's hard to imagine now, or really at all, that there would be a guy who, the part where he takes
her to the theater.
Yeah, he takes her to the theater. That part just is a little far-fetched for me. This is a guy who doesn't seem to be as unknowing as that to me.
Yeah.
It's just hard to feel into somebody like De Niro, and even though he's doing a good job at this role, at that point, kind of earlier on in the film, doing that is like, oh, okay, this is the kind of guy he is, but he doesn't seem like that yet. And it percolates, and he eventually shaves his head, right? And he like truly becomes this kind of character who's resentful and all that stuff. But when he takes her to that theater, it's just something about that just, it doesn't quite feel real. And everything else kind of does in some sense. And then there I'm like, there's no way he would have not known that she wouldn't have wanted to go to that,
Yeah. Like, I can totally get that he would self-sabotage this relationship eventually.
Right.
And that his, like, fantasy is going to be to kind of, like, degrade this, pure, innocent, blonde Protestant woman in some way, but it feels like that would kind of develop in some other more gradual way. But it's an evocative idea. I kind of I don't know, in my memory I conflate like this film with The Graduate. Because what happens in that film? What does he do when he takes out the daughter in The Graduate? Doesn't he make a similar like misstep, or am I totally misremembering that?
Oh man.
I'm asking because you watched it more recently than me, but
yeah,
I don't know. That kind of man who is kind of too in his own head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They exist kind of on a very similar.
Right. He's never doing quite what he should be doing in The Graduate. He's always a little off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only difference is like with The Graduate, he is immature. He is younger. And so it sort of feels like that's appropriate for him to be making those mistakes. Whereas with Travis, he just seems, it's De Niro. He seems old. Like he seems older. I guess maybe Scorsese had cast him in Mean Streets as a kind of crazy character too. And
yeah,
it would have, if you were watching this, you probably had seen Mean Streets, or there was like a good chance. So then you're going into the theater in 75, 76, and you're watching this same guy be crazy again. That would make sense. But now we watch it with like De Niro is like 80 now, and you're like, you've seen him in so many other roles. Just as good. This is one of those things where like there are certain roles that a person can act in that no matter how hard they try, there's going to be like an unrealistic kind of quality to it. And very few actors can like embody the role so tightly that you do forget that it's even them. People like Joaquin Phoenix or Daniel Day-Lewis. And in this role, as good as he does it, there is just a feeling I have watching it personally that I'm like, just at times I'm like, oh, this is De Niro acting.
Yeah, he became too much of like a movie star, I think.
Yeah.
And he's not deviating from his normal thing enough for it to feel like a transformation, like he disappears. And I'll be curious when you finally watch Raging Bull, how you feel about that, because that's a biopic. He's playing a real person. I think he really gets into that and gives maybe his best performance.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this kind of feels like this is the movie star De Niro kind of in his first, like, most realized form, because just the year prior, he had played the young Vito Corleone in Godfather Part 2 and won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. So that was like the real coming out for him in the mainstream. And there he's kind of playing an impression of a Marlon Brando character. Right. And this is, is totally him putting his authorship on a leading role. So
interesting. And given all that, he does a phenomenal job. It's just that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It also is the case that we've had now 50 years of, stories of characters like this in the news, and they're not like this. Like we know that a guy who's become so demented as to desire something like this is not this suave and cool and stuff. There's such a level of there is something much more off about somebody who's become like this, you know.
Yeah, it's how Betsy puts it to him when they first go for coffee. Like, you are a contradiction, you know. Yeah. She says you're like the Chris Christopherson song,
right? And he says, "Who's that?"
Yeah, but yeah, it is a kind of unreal character because he is like a movie star guy. I think at times he does really well, seeming very antisocial and strange, but he's also just like very interesting and compelling and can be charismatic too.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I could probably think of a lot of other actors who would have felt more real, but then I think, okay, he does devote himself and commits himself to the role in such a way that, you know, is incredible to watch.
And the filmmaking too, I think, makes it feel so unsettling, even more than like his performance can. I think the music is great, and then all these crazy camera choices that Scorsese is making when he's building his little like kit for going out and doing the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that stuff feels so visceral. The like making this little bracket thing so he can quick release the gun out from his sleeve and taping the knife to the boot and stuff. Like,
yeah,
there's really good kind of like sound work and just like the stuff just looks real, you know. And it's like that is kind of more unsettling than anything, just how tactile it is.
Yeah, that's true. I really appreciate that, how Scorsese was working like within a tight budget here. Like, this isn't yet the time where someone could get a lot of money for doing a project like this. And even though he probably had some success with Mean Streets and I guess Alice doesn't live here anymore, which he did the year before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's still working within a budget. It's probably why, you know, he's got this team of actors and crew that are all kind of sticking together. It's so funny to see what's his name show up as the pimp.
Yeah, Keitel.
You know, yeah. And he would have his mom be in. It's a kind of Cassavetes thing, you know. They're so similar in certain ways, but yeah, his mom shows up at the end of this one in the as the parents of the prostitute. She's like there's like a newspaper clipping.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah,
I know the way he puts it in the commentary is like he cast basically every single person he knew in New York when they were shooting this, and he only shows
including
up in
himself,
the film.
Including himself.
Yeah. Well, the guy that he wanted for that scene had just like gotten into an accident and couldn't shoot it. And he was like, I already put everyone else I know in the film, so I don't have someone else for this part now.
Oh, he just did a couple lines of cocaine and there he went.
Gosh, yeah. That scene, I mean, it's like, it's funny. And the Harvey Keitel character, too, is funny. And it's funny how they undercut what is like so upsetting, the most upsetting parts of the film, because they are kind of cartoonish. Like, there's almost like a way where this film is just like straight serious the entire time, and it maybe is like too dark and people don't go to it, you know. It doesn't become a Best Picture, you know, nominee and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
there's just enough here kind of keeping you from being just totally just uncomfortable the entire time, I think.
It won the Palme d'Or, though, didn't it?
Yeah, and crazy is like it had already come out in the US before it went to Cannes. It came out in like February and went to Cannes in like June and won the Palme d'Or. It's like, I mean, the producers, everyone didn't really think it was going to be a big movie and make a ton of money when they were, you know, conceptualizing it. And it was only really like as they were finishing it and putting it out, I think, that they realized the big hit they had and that it would be a critical darling as well. And I I kind of imagine they decided to go to Cannes after it released and did well. And it's so funny that it then wins the Palme d'Or as well.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see. And I guess they did things a little different then in that case. I'm just thinking too of like how many. It's just a random thought I had when you were talking about how dark it is. Dark in another way is that it was shot a lot of night scenes because he's like driving around his taxi at night. I mean, Scorsese is obsessed with New York at night. He did so many movies, like, his gangster movies. A lot of them are night scenes, but also after hours and Bringing Out the Dead. He's sort of obsessed with that scene. It's so funny that he directors have their things, and this is one of Scorsese's. I guess.
It's got such a unique energy being out in the city at night when it feels like anything could happen.
With what's his name on the score? Bernard
Herrmann, Hitchcock's guy.
Yeah.
Giving it that kind of noir thing. Like when we talked about the Chinatown soundtrack, it's like this feels like ultra noir, Mm-hmm. It's more noir than the noir films themselves.
Right, it's neo-noir.
Yeah.
Someone claimed, yeah.
And he had that thought to shoot it in black and white to really make it a throwback, but like the color and the neon and stuff does give it, a kind of that neo-noir feeling. It's updated and it's different from those films.
Yeah, and if you're gonna, like, if you can do color, if you have the capability to do that, and in the title of your movie is something that is noteworthy for its color, like a yellow taxi, it's nice to see in all of the frames and the cover and all that stuff, that yellow, that taxi yellow, that's so quintessential of New York,
Yeah, and that's the other thing, like, you put this guy in something so familiar in the setting of a taxi, and now you're thinking like I could get into any taxi and there might be a Travis Bickle driving it, like, it's like a Jaws effect of like there might be a shark in that body of water. It really kind of like sticks in your head, I think.
Yeah, that's true. This guy could be just a regular nice guy, or he could be, especially if you get a taxi at night, you're like, who's this guy?
The scene when he gives the ride to the candidate, I think, is an incredible one because, they're kind of talking, it's kind of a small talky conversation at first, and then that Travis Bickle stuff starts to come out, you want to just fucking flush it all down the toilet and stuff. And the way the candidate can only respond with like the vaguest sort of like, I think I know what you mean. Yeah. Stuff. It's like, I feel like that encapsulates what's wrong with like electoral politics in general. Just like, we're not trying to have conversations about, what we want the world to be. We're just trying to like rally people to one vague side or another.
Right. And that's that like political talking where you're like, somebody will say something like a question that's really legitimate and concerning. And then the infamous way to funnel everything back to like 3 talking points that the thing where they never actually answer the question. They somehow maneuver back to their familiar, rehearsed talking points. Yeah, it's great. It's great. We all love it. We all love that.
Yeah, it doesn't let any radical, destructive political feelings to fester in this country at all.
No. Keep it quiet. Keep it quiet. Move on to the next question. Next question, please. Thank you. Well, I'm going to have a question for you about the ending and what Schrader had to say about it, but what Ebert or others postulated, unless you have something else.
Oh, I've got some other things. I mean, I don't know. So well, you want to talk about like the shootout specifically?
Yeah, the shootout, and also how he becomes a hero. And Ebert had his theory that he actually dies in the shootout, and that the end is just like a kind of a dream. Would be his final dream, that he actually did become a hero, and that he would see that woman that he was interested in and kind of drive off coolly, uncaring.
Yeah, maybe we can like kind of wrap up talking about her character and then talk more about the Jodie Foster and that whole kind of subplot itself. But yeah, it's seeing her in the cab at the end, and how up until she gets out, we just see her through the rear view mirror, did feel very, very dream-like, which I really appreciated. I don't know, this could be real in any sense, but it feels like he is only going to kind of hear and see what he wants from this interaction, you know? Like in some way his worldview has been confirmed by, you know, coming out of the shootout a hero, and that's just going to be more harmful because he's not going to get reintegrated into society. He's just going to continue to be this person. So, I don't know. It's a good, effective ending. I almost don't want her to like step out of the cab and then we see her full body and stuff. Like I almost just want her in the rear view.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Whether or not he dies, the idea that scene actually happens is sort of unlikely. And that it's more interesting to me that this becomes like the kind of pain point of someone like this, is that they cannot escape from their own fascinations, their own dreams, that they're kind of trapped within their own bubble of their own creation.
Yeah.
I think of like, did you see Sean Baker's Red Rocket?
Oh yeah. Kind of a similar dream-like ending.
Yeah. He's trapped. That's the redemption of, for the audience, for this character you've had to like watch. This kind of character study is like, if he doesn't die, his curse is that he can't escape from what he fell into.
Or like Brazil too.
Yeah,
you know, where he keeps having these fantasies of being the hero, and you know, there's a question to the reality of everything at the end. I love stuff like that. Yeah.
And this is different. This one's different in terms of heroics and everything, but with the most recent film to come out, the drama with Zendaya, where, in my opinion, that end scene is not real. She doesn't walk into the restaurant, and it's really just him hopeful, because that's all in his head. It's just been that he's been paranoid. He's still paranoid, and after the movie ends, you're like, look, these characters are totally trapped, and they are either going to find their way out by going to therapy or whatever they need to do to get out of that situation, or this is their curse now.
Yeah. I think it's where Scorsese borrows on the Hitchcock stuff and a lot of noirs too, where they feel like they exist in a kind of like dream world, you know. They're stagey, or that people act strangely, and there's just a great quality that films can have when they lean into that. And even in a film like this, where so much of it is shot out in New York, in the real world, it feels very grounded, you know, taking that stuff and still making this feel very subjective, very dreamlike and unsettling. It's great, you know. I definitely think it elevates the film. I mean, you could imagine he creates this whole thing in his mind of rescuing this, you know, the most innocent possible like sex worker that you can imagine, you know, this 12-year-old girl, and you know, she gets introduced early on, and the Keitel character throws the crumpled $20 bill into the front of his cab as he drags her out of it. And I love that he gets that reminder of it later on when he pulls his wad of cash out of his jacket and he sees that crumpled bill, and that this sticks in his head. Like, that's just, he's projecting so much what he thinks, she is onto her in that conversation with her of like, why don't you want to get out of this? Like, I can rescue you from all this, like so much of this lives in his head as fantasy. So it's easy to imagine that none of it is kind of real.
Right.
But the funny thing with the Keitel character and how it kind of undercuts the seriousness of the film is that it was written as a black pimp, and Tarantino in his book Cinema Speculation really kind of tears down the film because of this decision they made to make the character white and to make the shootout at the end. He's only shooting white people because this was a choice that Scorsese and everyone made so that the film did not feel so dire and stuff. And that they did not literally want to create those images of this guy going on a rampage, killing a bunch of black people. But it skews the kind of like themes of this film because he is racist. We get that kind of clearly shown time and time again in the way that he interfaces with black people. He kills his first killing is the guy trying to rob the bodega that he just shoots and leaves. But like, yeah, they say on the commentary that like, the Schrader went out looking for a white pimp when they made this decision so that Keitel could like talk to this guy and get an idea of the role and stuff. And they couldn't find one because like at this time, like a pimp was a black man who, dressed flamboyantly and was like, playing this kind of character, basically. Like there wasn't a white version of that. If some sex worker had a pimp who was white, they weren't like out on the street being this person. So it just becomes a weird cartoon when Keitel is playing a type of person who doesn't exist,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting is like, though that may have been the case, and there's always going to be people who are, looking for realism in those kind of details. As a movie, for somebody who's like a little less aware of that, like now that you mention it, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that is the case. But I wasn't thinking of it when I actually saw him show up. I wasn't like, oh, that's strange, he should be black. I didn't even think of that until you mentioned it. So it has no bearing for those who are like outside of that.
Sure.
Cultural understanding.
Yeah. It definitely sticks out now since I read the Tarantino book, watching this again.
Yeah.
You get Jodie Foster as this idea he has of, someone pure and innocent that he can rescue, and the character that she portrays actually is someone who just wants to run away from home, and this is a way to make money and have somewhere to stay and stuff. And it's not like imprisoned or, held against her will, really. But that just doesn't jive with his idea of who she is.
Yeah. I watched this movie, Streetwise, from 1984, which is about Seattle street kids. And one of the main characters is a 14-year-old prostitute, and it kind of reminded me of that person. Actually, it was, not a far, like, it was kind of pretty amazing to me how realistic Foster portrays what you see in this documentary, at least.
Yeah, it felt like Red Rocket is again a good comparison point, because that feels like a example of a movie that very few people are willing to make now. Like, you just don't get scenes like the scene with Jodie Foster and Keitel, like alone in that room, and they have like a little slow dance and stuff. Like, that's too uncomfortable for people to have a scene like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it almost kind of took me out of the film, because I was like, okay, this is where we really have to, like, get the audience invested in the idea of killing this guy at the end. Like, we have to kind of zoom in on this relationship for people to I don't know, kind of get in that Travis mindset by the time that he shows up and goes on his shooting spree. But I don't know, what did you have other thoughts about that climax?
No, I mean, no, I didn't see all those characters being white as that huge of a deal. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think that I don't know. There's something about the way that it unfolded where Travis gets shot in the neck, and the likelihood that he would survive that shooting against all those guys, having been shot in the neck, is just so improbable. So you just it ultimately, to me, is more exciting and interesting to think of this all as a kind of it's easy to say metaphorical, but yeah, it is all kind of pointing towards other things. And like, yeah, you wouldn't end up with some crazy guy not going through with a shooting of a political candidate and instead shooting all these other guys to save a young prostitute, survive being shot in the neck, and then get and then be like awarded a hero rather than like, going and doing jail time yourself. Because you can't, I don't think it's the case that you can just go and shoot people that are doing bad things and then not go to jail yourself. You'd still end up in jail. Like, he killed like 6 people, some of who were innocent. You know what I mean? Like, some of who like were innocent of being killed. Like, if the police found a way to find out who was doing whatever and went in there and arrested them, they wouldn't have been put on death penalty. So they would have spent time in jail. So there are still like things you can't do, and that's one of them. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's much more interesting to think of this as like a fascination of Travis's, like a kind of dream and a kind of wishful thinking, and the whole time up until that moment, it's all in his head, and it's a lot of voiceover. He's like, well, I tried to take her out and she doesn't like me anymore, and Mom and Dad, this might be the last time you hear from me, and I love you, and I'm gonna go and do my thing. I feel like I have a calling. It's like so manifesto at the end, and he's ready to go do this intense thing. But then at the shooting where of the political candidate, those security guards see him and they don't let him do that. So at that point, the fascination, the dream, the desire to be this person just builds. And it probably would build in reality, build out to an even greater delusion. And so I don't know. I think whether Schrader said this or not, like Schrader claimed that he wanted to end the film where it began. Well, whether or not those last scenes are real or not, I would assume they're fascination. I would assume that they're the warped reality of somebody who's not been able to steer themselves away from becoming like this. And there's a number of things that this character does that he didn't have to do to kind of get him to this point. And some of them are kind of background, more simple things. And it's like having a bad diet. He's always eating like donuts and sugary things. And yeah, you never see him eat like a real meal, cook like himself a real meal.
Peach brandy, like poured over bread.
Yeah. It's already bad enough that he works at night, but he's like taking on even worse hours, and he's driving to places and picking people up in the worst spots. Like, he's choosing to submit himself to the darkest possible place in the darkest lifestyle, thinking that he can withstand it. And the fact is that he couldn't. You can't withstand that. I don't think there's very many people who could. And that's why most people kind of steer away from that and then try to make better decisions for themselves, even if life's hard. Like, life is hard, and some people have to have this job and yada yada, but you still do the healthier thing if you can. This is the kind of person who chooses to do unhealthy things and live an unhealthy lifestyle. And then you get at the end this pure warped fascination of somehow being a hero despite being like a demented, manifesto writing killer.
Yeah. Well, I love that it works both ways, both as a fantasy and as like this mirror of society where, we'll venerate the worst people sometimes.
Right.
That these kind of outlandish things can happen. It can be fantasy, but it can be reality too. And it can be like a Kyle Rittenhouse walking free type of thing,
Right.
It's great. Yeah, that it works on both of those levels. That it shows you the kind of most horrifying place that this guy himself can go, and it also shows you that society can give him the thumbs up too.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, pretty good film. Pretty good film.
Marty Supreme.
It's pretty terrifically made. I mean, it's I don't know, it's not one of my favorites. And part of that is probably just that, it became a real touchstone movie for the reasons of like that director's commentary and stuff. And, people kept studying this film and kept reiterating it with their own films. Tarantino and a million other directors borrowed from this film, Ari Aster and the Safdies and all these guys. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's a weird one to come back to. It's not like a movie that I'm like itching to show other people who haven't seen it or whatever. It's like, it's just really good.
Yeah, exactly. I think like if someone was interested in seeing it, I'd be like, yeah, do it. You're going to have a good time in what it does and thinking about it. But there's a lot of other movies that one might suggest.
Yeah. Bernard Herrmann, he gets the like dedication at the end of the film, but this was the last score that he completed. He like died very shortly after he finished recording the music.
Wow.
But it's a legendary, this music. It's so good.
Wow, just had deja vu. I feel like I've been told that same thing by somebody before.
Probably.
Very interesting. Yeah. So good. Magnificent Ambersons. Did he do that? Did he do the music for Orson?
I don't know, because he did so many films. Yeah. He did Citizen Kane in Ambersons. Yeah.
There you go. So when you get the chance to do music for something like that film, then that's what you'll be doing.
Yeah, but like it was that weird kind of haunting style that he started to develop, I think, more in the 50s, that really like peaks with Vertigo and Psycho. Like those are iconic. You watch something from the early 50s, like I saw On Dangerous Ground, a Nicholas Ray film that he does the music for, and he's starting to develop that Vertigo type sound, and it's so atmospheric. It is so good. It like really elevates the film. But no, it was like he was an old guy. People were using younger composers at this point, more trendier composers, but like De Palma and Scorsese in the 70s were still like, you've got the juice. Like, please do some music for my films.
Yeah, he's probably, you'd be inspired by Godfather and seeing Coppola choose the famous composer for Italian films. Yeah. Well, it kind of overlays really well because music, it's not, you don't see the composer. They're in the background, they're making music, and it kind of can, if you choose the right guy who's had a good body of work and has already started to do things that are interesting, I feel like that can be such a good overlay onto a movie that's doing new things. It's like, because now you have a clash of like kind of older compositional style with the newer gritty acting, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and like, he didn't want to just do something that he'd done before. you know, he knew that this was like a neo-noir kind of thing, so he wanted to update the sound a little bit, and he was bringing in more brass, more jazzy stuff into this. But he was consciously choosing to update that sound a little bit, and it's iconic.
But it is kind of important to remember that like Antonioni employs electronic sounding score, an electronic sounding score for Red Desert, which I think came out in what year was that now?
64?
Yeah. So that was 10 years earlier. And that soundtrack feels much more something that would come out in the 80s or something. So that it's like we are in a time and have been in a time where music could be kind of weird and electronic and strange and stuff. So we're in the time where that's the case. So, but here we have just kind of a haunting jazz sound with that bellowing trumpet. He's using analog sounds and stuff, but doing it in a haunting way.
Yeah. No, I think that covers it.
Yeah.
Come back next week and join us as we talk about Ukrainian filmmaker Larissa Shepitko and her film The Ascent, which, in my opinion, gives Tarkovsky a run for his money. You know, it's a great World War II film. It's also just a great cinematic exploration of the soul. So that'll be fun to talk about. But, you know, go to unauthorizedpod.com, check out that Substack and some of the stuff we're writing. Take a look at the letterboxes. We put reviews on there. And we'll catch you next time. Yeah.